Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Tokyo on Fire. Today is October 3rd, 2017. In a masterful stroke of strategic genius, Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, has called for a snap election, and he is well on his way to capturing the initiative of dominating Japanese politics from here on out. Michael Chuchek, you might have a different view.
I don't know which polls you've been looking at, but the momentum is not going in his direction as far as I can tell.
Okay, there's a lot of time between now and election, maybe, 15 days from now?
I don't even agree with that. This is the third shortest period of time between an election being called and one being held that's in the post-war era. There's nothing normal about what has happened here, and I don't think that Mr. Abe is masterful. I don't think he knows at all what he's done.
Well, I mean, he set up a great cabinet that propelled his numbers. He's got to choose some time to have an election between now and September of next year. This was as good a time as any.
Oh, he selected a great cabinet which never appeared in a single Diet Committee meeting. The first time that's happened. And wow, they didn't get to testify. They didn't get to give a speech. Not a single thing. And he dumps them. I don't know. For some people in the Diet, they thought that was really cheesy. Mm-hmm. But who cares? That's not going to be a big electoral issue. But the little details matter in some time. And this time, he dumps the cabinet, and in the next round of opinion polls that come up, cabinet support's gone down. They haven't actually done a thing between the last poll and now. It's just simply the fact that he dumped them made him and the whole cabinet look bad.
Okay, well, he had to do something. I mean, and look, if he waited much longer, then the opposition parties, especially this Party of Hope, doesn't have enough chance to kind of get its policies together, get its candidates together to run a really frontal assault on the LDP.
Okay, we've seen with the dissolution of the Democratic Party, the effective dissolution of the Democratic Party, and how easily that happened. There was no danger to Mr. Abe at all. Mm-hmm. He had time to wait, and indeed, the Constitutional Council within the LDP had put out an entire program saying, this is what we're going to be doing over the next year. We're going to finally get to work on constitutional revision. We have the votes in the Diet. We have proposals. We want to put them before, first of all, the opposition parties, and then the public. And over the year, we do it. And he comes back from a trip and he says, nah, we're going to do it my way.
Sure.
So this is all him, okay? This is all, even though his party will be supporting all kinds of candidates all over the country, this is on him. And it's basically a referendum on him. But it's just not structured that way. And the initial moves have been stunning in that how quickly support has flowed from Mr. Abe's party to the Party of Hope. The Kyoto poll of earlier this week had the LDP at 28% support and the new Party of Hope at 15%. Now, that may not be striking distance, as one article put it, but nevertheless, the Party of Hope is cannibalizing support from both the LDP and the remnant DP. It's not creating any new interest in unaffiliated voters yet, but that may come. Mm-hmm.
Unintended consequences. Who would have predicted that the DP, the Democratic Party, would have just imploded as a consequence of the Prime Minister calling for the snap election?
Well, that's going to be one thing that we're going to go over all over again and again. Was Maehara's election a setup that they knew that they were going to be leading the party into some kind of dissolution?
Probably not.
It's probably not. Charitably, Maehara is just an idiot. Uncharitably, he's a conniver, and he and Hosono and Koike worked out over the summer how this was going to play out. Well, Hosono leaves, then Maehara is in a state. He has a dinner with Koike. He comes back to his party, says, okay, some of you can go into the lifeboat, most of you won't. This is finished.
Mm-hmm. Well, historically, when there's a kind of a state of confusion, don't voters typically go to the LDP because it is the party, the standard party.
Historically, it's a wash where they go. Most of the time, they just don't show up. Here we have an unprecedented amount of chaos.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Abe, by calling the snap election, has simply threw down his cards on the table, and he assumed that Koike Yuriko would not be able to respond. He was wrong in that. She did respond, and she responded in a strong way. She put together the semblance of a party very quickly. I say a semblance because it's mostly made up of refugees and rejects from the opposition parties
And
that exist.
untested politicians.
Untested politicians from, but when she had her press conference, she had 14 members of the Diet up there.
Oh, it looked good.
It looked good. It's more than enough to get public funding when December rolls around, but we're not there yet.
Right.
And whether any of these members of the Diet will survive is really questionable. They're probably going to be double listed on the district list as district candidates in single member districts and on the party proportional list. So even if they lose in their districts, her Hope Party will generate enough interest and votes, they will pop
Right.
back into the Diet. And for them personally, it's a great deal.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them, however, are the dregs of humanity. They're probably not going to. They probably didn't have a chance, which is why they left their parties in the first place. This is a fantastic deal for them,
Mm-hmm.
but for the voters, it's a terrible deal. They're going to be putting their hope, literally, into this party.
Untested. We
and
don't even know what their policies are.
It will put into office, back into the Diet, people who shouldn't be in the Diet in the first place. The marginal, absolutely bottom of the barrel legislators who didn't have any loyalty to their fellow team members. Those are the people who are going to be reelected. There's something seriously wrong with that.
Right.
And that is the first thing that sticks in the craw. The second thing is that the DP has still a House of Councillors representation. It's still extant. We haven't heard a single thing out of Renho for the entire week so far.
Yeah.
And she must have something to say. And there must be some way, most importantly, for someone to divide the money. And that's the real question in this election. It's more not policy, it's money. And that's really getting to me.
Right.
Because in my newspaper, journalists are trying really hard. I read the newspaper, they're trying really hard to point out what the differences are between the parties in terms of their political stances. But it's irrelevant.
Right.
It's cash, cash, cash. Who has it? Who doesn't? That is right now the story here in Japan.
Right. Well, that's the story always when there's an election. But when it comes to voting for, who you like, it really is a personality profile, isn't it?
Yeah, but the personalities that are inside Hope are horrendous. Kyuichi Takatane accepted. Nice guy. The others, all of them are members of the Nippon Kaigi. All of them are ones who are either got in through the proportional list on their parties, lost in their districts, or are so heinous that they, in the case of Nippon Kokoro's Nakayama-san, she was too radical and too right-wing for the LDP. They couldn't keep her. This is a really, really peculiar situation where
very peculiar.
where the reformists are actually the sludge at the bottom of the barrel. You say, wow, how did we get here?
Yeah. Right. Well, aren't you proving my point, though? On October 22nd, when all is said and done and everybody has cast their ballots and the LDP has at least parity with what they have now or a few more, in fact, then you could say, well, the Prime Minister made the right calculus, he called it right, and he had an election way before he was structurally supposed to have it sometime next year.
But that, again, is assuming that the goal of a political career is the furthering of one's own term in office. Now, that's fine for Mr. Abe, who is very happy to be Prime Minister for as long as he can be, with ostensibly relatively few achieved goals. He's had, especially on the economic side. On the security side, he has achieved some legacy issues. Whether he has made Japan safer or not is a completely different issue.
On the campaign stump, though, he did say that unemployment is at its lowest level.
Yeah, is it that due to him or due to the work of the Bank of Japan and
the population
and the population of Japan?
Right.
What have you done, Mr. Abe, aside from being the cheerleader and also, of course, taking credit for everything? It's a bit bizarre. We really deserve to have a policy discussion, and that's not going to happen. That's not really so bad if you think of in terms of a snap election.
Right.
There's just no time to do it. But here it's almost perversely focused on the personal survival of members of the Diet.
Right.
Gemba Koichiro of what was DP, and I don't know where he is now, inadvertently and very honestly said, well, this is about the lives of members of the Diet. And constituents said, no, you are our representatives.
Right.
It's about our lives. This is not an election about your lives. It's about ours. But no, in fact, he's quite right. This is about Mr. Abe's career. It's about Mr. Gemba's career. It's about all of these persons' careers and not about the country. And there's something that's seriously gone wrong.
Don't you think, though, within the 13 days that they have for campaigning, that the differences will really start to come to the fore and voters will be presented with viable options between what the LDP or what the Prime Minister stands for and what the opposition parties or what the non-LDP parties stand for?
Mr. Langley, a new party was just formed yesterday.
That's right.
We are having instability unlike anything we've ever seen before. We're basically only a week away from the election. We've had two parties established in the last 2 weeks.
Right.
There are numerous members of the Diet who have no affiliation at this time.
And there are a bunch that have just resigned, too.
I'm
through with it.
Yeah, there are a bunch that have just resigned. Now, the LDP, where it has its legacy, the father to the son or father to the daughter or to the son-in-law, they've handled that and they have candidates going. But for the DP members who resigned, Yokomichi after all these years,
Tanigaki,
and Tanigaki has resigned, all these places are open. We have a level of chaos and uncertainty that is unprecedented. And it is going to, I think it's going to drive, the story is going to be the race. It's not going to be the policies.
Right. A massive amount of confusion interjected into Japanese politics. This is something that's going to unroll for the next 2 weeks. Please stay tuned.